What's up? This is Jordan Gray from Half Lit and DopelivenTV.
Hey, this your boy Don Ritchie representing the Midwest 219. Stand up.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Lamar Tate.
This is your girl Monifa.
Hey, what up? This your man Dave Hollister from Blackstreet.
You know what this is right here. It's Trigger Trench in the building.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is your boy Jason Weaver. And whenever I'm back home in the shop, I'm checking out Dope Living TV.
Hey, it's your girl Ladina Howard, and you're watching Dope Living TV live with Greg and the Curtain.
All right, let's get this in. It's your boy Greg Gray, Dope Living TV live. Y'all know what time it is. Today, we're going to have a great show, all right? Let me start it off by saying the views that are expressed on this Dope Living TV live are not necessarily the views of Dope Living TV or its affiliates, but all bets off today because I got my guy, my friend, been knowing him for a long time, but I ain't seen him in a minute. But I see what he's doing, okay? My man Marcus Chapman is going to be on here in a second, okay? Let me bring the people on here. Let's say what's up to
What's up?
We're going to have some fun, man.
Yeah, all the time.
You already know. Everybody say what's up to Mo B.
What's going on? What's going on?
Maurice, what's happening?
Nashville, Tennessee.
What's up?
Chilling. One word. All right. Ain't no fun if we don't put the life coach in it.
What? Really?
Hey, coach.
What's going on?
Man, look. Somebody else just popped. Hold on. Let me make sure I got them in here too. That would be Mr. Kevin McLemore.
K-Mac.
What's up? What's going on, fam? What's going on,
It's the
fam?
Mac. It's the Mac.
It's the Mac.
The Mac, man.
Fam,
Mac
how you
Daddy.
doing?
Look, man, today we're gonna have a good show, okay? We celebrate Black History 365, 24/7, all the time. It's just not 1 month. We celebrate it all the time, all right? And right now we got a piece of Black history. He's gonna sit down with us and talk about his journey today. His name is Marcus Chapman, MC Marcus Chapman. He's a radio personality. He's a music historian. He's a voiceover talent. He's a published author. He's a screenwriter, on-air contributor for TV1's music documentary series Unsung, and I'm quite sure everybody's seen that. Also the film documentary series Unsung Hollywood, and to present, he's host of the Best of the 90s radio show, and he's from Chicago. Man, look, if I had the claps and the people in the in the background, I'd have it going, okay? But until then, look, let's bring on and say hello to Mr. Marcus Chapman.
There it is. Let's
Everybody.
give it
There you
up.
go.
Give it up.
There you go. Give it up. Give it up.
What's going on, Marcus?
How you doing, Marcus?
Hey, what up?
There he is.
What's
there he
happening?
is.
Hey,
What's
what's
going
going
on,
on,
man?
man?
Chop, chop.
Fellas,
Long
let's
time
go.
no see.
So what's up, Marcus?
What'd you say? Long time no see.
That's what she said. Long time no see.
What's
I
happening,
remember
man?
you back on the radio station.
WG.
Okay. Which one? In Chicago?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay.
Might have a little delay, Marcus, but we're gonna get it in, okay? Maria Arnon, right off the bat, she says she loves you, Marcus. She says she loves you. Bella Benita says dope. So what's going on with you, brother?
Oh, a lot, man. A lot. These days, the main thing's been dealing with my show. You just mentioned it, Best of the 90s. I started doing it back in October for a local station here, the FM Omni channel. It used to be 95.1. And did it for about 4 months. And at the end of January, a little more than a month ago, I made a deal with a syndication company to try to get it on some other stations around the country. And we got a couple of affiliates so far: Toronto, Alabama, and some other. Yeah, that's the thing. Get it heard in as many places as possible. So it's funny because it's like totally different from everything else I ever did in radio. It's almost the total opposite. You
How
know,
so?
because in professional radio, the on-air talent don't choose the music for one.
Right.
Right.
They
Program
used to,
director.
but that changed like around the time when Dr. King got assassinated. For most people who don't know, like obviously that was 1968. So around that time, a lot of radio stations were not 24 hours. They were on maybe till midnight, maybe 1 in the morning. So the night Dr. King got assassinated, apparently a lot of the guys who were on the radio at that time, they bypassed the rules and they stayed on anyway to try to calm people down, from taking to the streets and all that stuff. And so the station owners got in trouble over that. So I guess they said, well, how can we, because they figured out that the power of black radio when that happened because of the influence the guys on the air had. And they said, well, how can we kind of tone this down or keep this under control? And at the time they were choosing the music. So they chose to take that responsibility out of the hands of the on-air talent, put it in the hands of the program directors, eventually as music directors. So the people who most of us have heard over the years on professional radio, particularly during the week, it wasn't about choosing songs. It was about interacting with the public, So my whole career, aside from college, now if you're doing college radio, that's different. Then you may choose the songs, and these days internet radio and podcasts, all that kind of stuff, that's a different lane. But working in professional radio, you're typically not going to be choosing songs. And with this Best of the 90s show, I'm choosing songs like I did in college. The only difference is in college in the 90s, because I was in college the first half of the 90s, and the second half I was working in professional radio. So the first half of the 90s, when I was doing college radio, I was actually playing records out of my own collection, but I was playing stuff from the 70s. It's like I stopped house music, the days of that being the party music of young people in Chicago had actually kind of passed. And so I ended up only doing that for a semester, and I switched to playing like funk and R&B from the 70s, early 80s, because that stuff was getting sampled a lot at that time. So I was choosing music then, and most people don't realize it. Like they think, picking the music is, ooh, you get to pick the music. Picking music is hard, man. Okay, it's a whole different responsibility. You know what I'm saying? And I'm doing that, and I'm not really interacting with the audience. Like my main thing was always talking to the people. It wasn't about me being on the mic. It wasn't about interviewing those celebrities and all that. It was about talking to the people who called. That was the fun thing. So this is a little different because I'm not doing that, but I still try to bring it as if I'm still doing the same type of personality radio. I'm just not depending on interacting with the callers so much. It's more so focused around the music. It's almost like bringing the unsung approach to a radio show. But because I am a personality and that's how much, most of my experience came from that, I can draw on that to kind of drive the show and keep it lively, even without talking to individual people. And then occasionally I had like little snippets of audio from interviews that other people did with the celebrities that tie into the songs. So I'll use that sometimes. And then as long as you give them credit, I'll say, in an interview with Angela Yee, Salt and Pepper said this about, What a Man or whatever, and just put it all together. And it's a 2-hour show. It's a perfect lane. So, I was 16 when the 90s started. I was 26 when it ended. So, ain't too much anybody gonna be able to tell me about it because I was heavy into what was happening at the time. So yeah, it's cool. It's like being young and being experienced at the same time. So it's a pretty cool thing.
That's what's up, man. So, I mean, as you've explained, man, it's not easy to pick this music because there's a lot of music came out at the same time, and you've been around. Everybody, I guess most of my audience know you from WGCI in Chicago, but you've been around for a minute, man. What is your process? What do you look for when you're looking for music to play for the masses?
Well, for this show, I mean, it's pretty simple. I have research books and research papers and stuff. I have like, okay, so at the end of every year, Billboard magazine, who print out the main charts that people use, they always had a year end issue, and they would have the top songs of every year, the top albums for each chart they did. A lot of times people say the Billboard charts. They talking about the pop charts, which is what mainstream America was into. That could be anything. It could be R&B, it could be hip hop, it could be rock, whatever. Whatever they into, that's on the pop chart. But the charts that most reflect what black folks were into in urban cities in America were the R&B chart. Or now it's the R&B/hip hop chart, or they've used different terminology. At one point it was just the black music chart. At one point it was something else. So, but those charts are the ones that show what black folks are into. So, oh, matter of fact, I'm sitting right here. Might as well show it to you. So, like this book right here. This book has every song that hit the R&B chart between 1942 and 2010. So I can go in this book. Let's say I want to look up, let's say Nas. Okay, what did Nas do? Okay, I'm on the Nas page,
Nice.
so I can look up Nas's entries, and it'll show, what songs hit the chart, what week it hit the chart, how high it got, how many weeks it was on the chart. And so if it's a song that, I mean, like I said, most of the time in the 90s, I was aware of what was going on anyway. So I can draw on my own memories of what was hot, but having the documentation helps as well. And so what I did, I went through, before I even started doing the show, I went through all of my research stuff. I went through that whole book I just showed you, and I took this note for the show. So say like this is the first page right here. So the first artist in alphabetical order is Aaliyah. So I got all the Aaliyah songs. I marked down what date I played it to keep track. So I know, okay, I ain't played none of this. So I played that a couple of weeks ago, what have you. And so I did that with every artist. So it doesn't fill up the whole notebook, but I can go through that. And what I'll do is I'll go through this, and I have a different notebook that I'll write down the possibles for that week. So say like this is these were the possibles. So for Black History Month, I did shows where I was featuring particular years, because I always wanted to do something creative. That's one thing, like over the years, starting in like late 98, 99, I started checking out a lot of classic rock radio. And I've done that in every city I lived in. And they tend to be more creative with their programming. They'll do stuff like, a lot of stations, they'll play 3 songs from Led Zeppelin every night at 8:00. Get the lead out, or whatever they want to call it. I remember one station they did a thing where they would play 3 straight Van Halen songs every Saturday and Sunday at 6:00. Or they'll play like an entire album at midnight. It's the type of stuff that used to happen in radio, back in the 70s or what have you. Black radio, to me, don't take them kind of chances. They don't, they stick to what's going to work. They play the hits and all of that. But in terms of doing things kind of aside from mixes, it's rare you're going to hear any specialized programming on a black radio station or a station that's geared towards black people. So because I pick the music and I'm creative, a lot of times I always wish that they would do certain things. So I kind of take advantage of the opportunity I have. So for Black History Month, instead of just doing the regular show, I said I'm going to do, each show is going to be a particular year from the early 90s. So I did 1990, 91, 92, 93. And then this weekend, even though Black History is over, Black History Month is over, I'm doing 1994 just to round out that first half of the decade. And then since June is Black Music Month, I'll do the second half of the 90s then. Okay. But like
Hey,
what I'll
man.
do, I'll look in that notebook I just showed you and I'll write down my possibles for the week. So these were the possibles for the 1992 show. And I put them in categories. I had like the fast R&B songs to choose from, the mid-tempo, the rap songs, and the slow jams. And there are certain features in the show that kind of help with the structure. Every week I do a remix of the week, because the remixes were big in the 90s. I do a soundtrack jam of the week. I do a artist collaboration of the week, because before the 90s, you really didn't have a lot of artists working together. Ain't no song with Parliament Funkadelic and Earth, Wind and Fire. But it's song with Jodeci and the Dog Pound. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Right.
So I did that. And then also for the regular shows, I do a back-to-back artist of the week. So we're going to get back to that next week. I didn't do it for these special shows because I didn't want to play 2 songs in a row by the same artist. I wanted to be able to get as many people in as I could. And I also do something called a 90s triple play, where I do 3 songs from the same year. Well, obviously, if I was doing all the same year for one show, I didn't need to do that one. But there's a certain structure to it. I try to, keep it party oriented, though, because one thing I learned from doing this show is, doing the research. And I knew this, but this is why research is important, because it refreshes your memory.
Right.
There was kind of like 2 different 90s going on, particularly in the early 90s. At the beginning of any decade, the music don't just change right away. It takes a few years before the decade kind of carves out its own identity. So even though 1990 and 1999 are in the same decade, they're not in the same era. The music from 90 sounds more like 88, 89, whereas the music from 99 don't sound nothing like that. So the first few years of the decade, the first few years of the decade, you still had a lot of artists from the 80s who, were kind of continuing on, but you had like the younger sounding people, and then you had like the old school sounding people who were a little more laid back. You had your Anita Baker, your Regina Bell, or Mickey Howard, Keith Washington. They were kind of younger people years old. We wasn't really buying that kind of stuff. You would see the videos. It was cool to look at them. I used to like Regina Bell. I thought she was nice looking, but I wasn't bumping that in the ride. I'm bumping some AMG, you know what I'm saying? Some DJ Quick, Dr. Dre, Biggie, whatever. So I noticed that there's a separation in just the style of music. I kind of try to keep it towards the younger end of it. If the older artists had some real nice up-tempo songs that fit, though, I'll drop those in there. I dropped a Little Luther. I've dropped some Angela Winbush, if it fit the vibe of the show, but I try not to get into the sleepier version of the 90s.
Well, that's good, man. You know what? The and the show is really doing well, I'm told, man. So congratulations on that. Okay. But having all of this inside of you, knowing that you wanted to do this and break out and do this, and you were being, and I'm not going to say it in a bad way, you were being held back in the day, like in this picture here, I just had to put a second plug, you were being held back a little bit because you were behind the scenes than be in front of the scenes. How did that feel when you knew you had all of this inside of you and the station wasn't giving it, letting you have that outlet?
Well, I didn't see it that way. I didn't feel like that. I knew, the thing about it, even though I did radio in college for 3 years, I didn't go to a broadcast school. So I knew that the business was competitive, and I knew that people who went to broadcast schools like Columbia or even just regular universities with good communication programs, like, people went to Southern or went to Illinois State, whatever. I knew that they were ahead of me, that they had learned more than I did. So when I got in there, for me, it was about learning the game, and I did 2 internships. I interned at GCI summer 94. And then I I interned with WGCI AM 1390, and at the time they were playing older music, 60s and 70s for the most part. They put me with them because the show I was doing in college was 70s, so they put me with them, you know. But I was just learning the game, man. And then after I interned with them, I interned at a pop station because I went to Northern in DeKalb, Illinois. It's like about an hour and a half away from Chicago. So I interned at a pop station, and I learned a different angle of the game, a totally different aspect. That was when I first saw, there used to be an industry magazine called R&R, Radio and Records. And what was cool about them is they would have the charts, but it wouldn't be based on sales. They would be based strictly on radio play. Right. So you got to see the playlist for each station around the country. See, you could compare, okay, well, this is hot in DC, this is hot in Detroit. And I got a chance to see that. And because it was a pop station, one thing I learned, we always hear about the term crossover, black artists crossing over to the pop charts. But I didn't realize until I did that internship that just because an black artist crosses over it, they don't get played on all the pop oriented stations because there's different formats in that. You got the ones that are geared more towards rock, you got the ones that are geared, they call them churban, contemporary hit radio. Those were more like black stations geared towards white folks who like black music or Hispanics who into black music. So a perfect example I remember was TLC Red Light Special. Okay. So the station I was interning at, they said when TLC Creep came out, they didn't play that because it had more of an urban feel, and that wasn't what they did. But when Red Light Special came out, it had the rock guitar solo, it had a different kind of vibe. So they was like, yeah, we could play this. This fits our format. So they added it into their rotation, and I remember I was happy about that. Yeah, we got the black folks on here now. So it was just about learning the game, man. So when I got in GCI, I didn't go in there like, ooh, y'all got to give me this or give me that. I worked for everything. I earned it, and I learned along the way because back then they had somebody helping out in the studio from between 6 in the morning and 10 at night. Whoever was on always had an assistant. And back then the music was on carts. They looked like little 8-track tapes, the music and the commercials. So somebody had to pull those carts for them, the physical carts, and you had to stack them and put them in order that they were supposed to play. And you had to give them to the on-air talent for them to actually play the stuff, So that was actually my first job. I got in there doing that. And you had to take requests, which opened up a whole different world because that gave me the chance to communicate. Because when I was in college, what nobody called a radio station. We were like I said, an hour and a half from Chicago. So people wasn't really listening to us. They was listening to GCI and all the other Chicago stations. So the phone was not ringing off the hook by any means. But when I got to GCI, get to the big #1 station in Chicago, the phone was ringing all the time. So to me, that was an opportunity to connect with people. And I remember one of the big things, because I wasn't an on-air talent for the station and I was an assistant, the people who were on, whenever they would talk going into commercials, sometimes, depending on who it was, they would have me come up and talk with them. So I get to talk, bounce off of whatever they was just for like a minute or so. And then I couldn't wait to get back to the phones and answer. So I'd be like, yeah, that was me that you just heard. So it was fun, man, and like I said, I just took it step by step. Yeah, I took it step by step because I never lost sight of my goal. I walked in, and I'll never forget this. I remember I had a meeting with Marv Dyson, the president of the station. And what did he say? He said something to me. He was talking about how in radio, it was a nationwide industry. Most people who worked in radio, you didn't start out in the city that you were from. You know,
Right.
most people worked around in smaller cities, especially if you were from a big city. You worked around, you worked your way up to the major markets. And once you got that experience and you were good enough to do it. And I remember, I think he said something like, you know, he was kind of joking, like, you know, maybe, you know, according to your boys that I met, you know, you the baddest cat in the history of radio. So maybe you ain't gonna have to do that. And I remember I said this straight. I said, I'm badder than everybody you got except Doug Banks, Rick Party, and Hal McGee. And he was like, he got serious. He was like, that's damn near my whole staff. Like, what the hell you talking about? You know, but it was one of them situations. I'm 22 years old. I'm at the crib broke. I'm trying to get a job. Like, I'm trying to make an impression. So he was like, okay, I'll walk you over to, you know, meet the program director. He make all the decisions and I let him deal with that, you know. So I eventually got in there. But what I would do, the same way I got in there in the first place, I would make tapes of myself because they had 3 studios, the FM, the AM, and it was a third studio that they didn't use as much. It was like they would pre-record stuff in there. People might cut some, whatever. And so I would borrow the CDs from the music director and I would go in there and make tapes of myself talking over the intros of the songs like I was on the air, you know? And I kept doing that at least once a month. So I got in there in August of 95 and I'd say, huh? Yeah, I got in there August of 95, and at least once a month I was making them tapes. And so by the time we got to like maybe January of 96, they told me I was good enough to at least audition for a spot. And they actually had me audition to be the co-host of a rap show on Saturday nights. But they didn't want to have 2 guys doing it. So they didn't feel that I fit that. But they did feel like I was good enough to at least, you know, try to get on the staff. So by that summer, I had a chance to audition. Matter of fact, it was the night the Bulls won their 4th title when they beat Seattle.
Right.
I got the audition and I passed the audition. I ended up on the staff. And so, you know, I just kept taking it. Every year I was able to go to a higher level. That's one thing I love about those years. Like I went from intern in 94, 95, 98, got on in prime time. 99, I got hired to be full time in another market. So it was like every year was progress. I was killing it. So yeah, I'm very proud of what I was able to do between like 18 and like 28, 29. Like every year I was killing it, man. You know.
Hey, man, you know what though? I remember, you know, when you're talking about this, I remember most of this, man, because of the fact that, you know, when I used to come up to GCI and hang out with you, Rick Party, Dr. Love, all of them, man, you know, you guys always gave us so much love, gave my crew so much love, man. But, you know, when I saw you, you was all over the place, bro. You was here with the carts. You was here doing this, answering the phones. You was doing everything, man. And I'm like, that was, I couldn't understand it because, you know, all I did was carry a mic and do this and do that, okay? But I was like, man, that's too much. That's too much. How did it feel, though, once you started getting out there, man, and everybody's respecting what you've done and what you did there? And, you know, because you did a lot. How did you feel when you finally were able to carry your own?
Well, it's funny you mentioned respect because there was a lot of disrespect too. You know, a lot of people, you got to realize I was the youngest person who worked there for several years, from 95 to 98. In 99, they hired a couple of people who were younger than me, but I was the youngest person on the whole staff. And so a lot of people didn't really take me seriously as an on-air talent. Now, they didn't have no problem with me helping out other people, but a lot of people thought that that's what I was supposed to do. And so I give you a perfect example. I was just talking to my mom about this. So one night, so one of the first, like I said, I was a studio assistant. The first job that I became an official employee was I had to run the board, run the whole show, the slow jam show they was doing, Whispers in the Dark.
I remember that.
They had just started it. They started at the end of 95. Yeah, and they had a guy named Raymond Anthony.
Yep.
So Raymond Anthony At the time, he was working at WDS in Philly, and Elroy Smith, who was the PD in Chicago, wanted to hire Raymond Anthony, but he couldn't get out of his contract. So they tried some other cats, and Elroy wasn't happy with it. So finally, they came up with the solution of having Raymond record his voice on DAT, digital audio tape. They would send him what the music was on what they call the music log, so he would see everything that was going to play. He had the freedom to move stuff around, and he would record his voice. And they had a cat in there named Stephen Mongamir, and he was the producer for the Tom Joyner show when it was national. So by 96, they wasn't running Tom Joyner no more. Tom Joyner show moved over to V103, and they had hired Steve Harvey to host mornings in Chicago locally, long before he was national.
Yeah.
So they gave Stephen the job of putting music in the digital system. Well, first they gave him the job to run the Slow Jam show. Okay, but Stephen wasn't an on-air talent, so he knew all the technical stuff, but he didn't know how to make it sound like a live show. So I got hired to do that, and they gave him the job of putting music in the digital system. So I had to do everything for the Slow Jam show except talk, which was perfect for me because I didn't want to host the Slow Jam. I had learned that the thing about Slow Jam hosts is they tend to get pigeonholed. Once you host a show like that, that's all people in radio think that you're going to do. It's very rare Slow Jam host gets to host music that's up-tempo, shows with up-tempo music, and that's really where the bigger money was in drive time, not late at night. So I had to run the Slow Jam show, but I wasn't supposed to talk. So one night, this was in, I want to say this is like November of 96, either October or November. I get to work. Chuck D of Public Enemy is there. And he had just came out with a solo song called No. I had heard it on the competing station 106 Jams. I heard Ferris play it in a mix or something. So I get there. Chuck is there in one of the production rooms with two of the other employees. All right. And so I got to chop it up with him a little bit. But I had to go in the studio to run the show. So I asked him if he would cut a drop for me. You know, a drop is when, the artist be like, hey, this is so-and-so. I'm kicking it with MC Marcus Chapman or whatever. So I asked the people who were in there with him to record it for me. And they said, okay. So the Slow Jam show was 3 hours. The show is over. I go into the room. They're long gone, but they had it on reel-to-reel tape. So I played the reel. I heard Chuck do the drop. You know, this is Chuck D, Public Enemy #1, kicking true knowledge from my man Marcus Chapman right here on WGCI Chi-Town. All right, great. But right after that, I heard the people who recorded it say, now, is he ever going to get to use that? And the other one was like, ooh. And I knew why they were saying that. Because by that time, I was on the air staff, but I didn't have a show of my own. So I was only on like maybe once a month. I did like maybe 2 in the morning on holidays or whatever. So a lot of people didn't take me seriously as a personality, like I said, you know. But I knew it was just a matter of time before things started to break. And even when I got my own show, which was like March of 97, even then, sometimes people didn't take me seriously because of what time I came. And it wasn't just people in the station either. Like I got a lot of good feedback from different people in the public sometimes, but sometimes people would diss me because they'd be like, because I used to go to the parties. I was a big party person. I would go to the clubs and promote my show right before I did it because the show was called The After Set. It was 3 to 6 in the morning, Friday night going to Saturday morning. And remember, the clubs used to let out at 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 in the morning, whatever. So I would go to like the Click or What's Poppin' or, wherever the happening party was in Chicago and, tell people to check out my show. Sometimes people would call me when I did the show and tell me they met me or whatever. But some people would be like, man, get out of here with that. 3 o'clock in the morning. Like, one girl, she was like, you come on at 3 o'clock in the morning? That's late. Like something was wrong with me or something. So that always motivated me, because my attitude was I always had 3 words: we gonna see. We gonna see if I'm a joke or if I'm real. We gonna see, because I knew that you could talk all this stuff all you want to, but when you actually hear me, you gonna have a different attitude. It's just that most people wasn't hearing me because most people who listened to the station wasn't up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night. But the ones who were, the ones who was working in hotels and gas stations and they were happy to hear a show that was entertaining, because there were people who were better than me who had been on at that time, but because they didn't think people was listening, they didn't give the same type of effort that they gave when they was on in the afternoon or in the morning or whatever, because they assumed there wasn't nobody listening. But I knew that that wasn't the case, because like I said, I went out to clubs and I would see people literally leave the party, get in their car, turn on the radio. So I knew it was an audience. So yeah, man. I mean, back then I used all that stuff for motivation, and every time it felt like there was an obstacle, I knew I had what it took to overcome it, because and that built character too. A lot of times people get stuff. I've had this conversation with people, everybody don't always go through a lot of paying dues and some people, things just happen good for them early on. And that's fine.
Great.
But what happens with a lot of those folks is when they get to a point where they hit some adversity, they don't have the character to bounce back from it. They can get crushed easily by opinions that people give them or feedback or whatever. And they don't know how, because they didn't go through no kind of struggle. But if you go through the struggle and it builds your character, when things break, it goes well. But then if something goes bad, you don't just totally fall apart, because okay, I've been through something like this before. This ain't gonna last. You just keep pushing and make it happen.
Now I want to. Oh, Greg, you muted.
Greg, you're muted.
Yeah, Greg, you muted. We can't hear you, brother.
You muted.
My bad. I was muted. My bad. But anyway, y'all could have read it. Maria, I known you since I was 15 and never known someone so talented and so hardworking. It was ridiculous. But you have accomplished so much, Marcus, and you have so much more to give. And so many of us from NIU are so proud of you. I remember buying the tapes you made and the memories from them. Hey, then you guys got any questions for Marcus?
I want to know that, you've done so much within your career with radio. My man, you was getting it in. And I just want to let you know that's a total inspiration, brother. You talked about paying your dues. You talked about bouncing back, going through the disrespect and everything. Did you ever reach a point in your career in radio where you said, or you thought to yourself, you made it? Or did you always want to just continue to keep learning, trying different things? Because you were so creative in what you were doing, even behind the scenes, before you even got on the air. So did you ever get to a point where you was just like, okay, I'm here, I've learned as much as I can learn, or I've done all I could do with radio? Or did you always want to just keep learning that aspect of it and mastering the craft?
Well, there was never a point where I said I learned all I can. But in terms of getting to a point where I felt like I made it, oh, hell yeah. I can pinpoint the date to you, homie.
I hear you, man. I hear you, brother.
Yeah. So, yeah, because here's the thing. So I go back to 1998. That's a very pivotal year for me. So, like I said, 97, I got my first show late, 3 to 6 in the morning. And like I said, sometimes I got a little disrespect. So by the time I got to 98, I knew I was good. I said I was good in 95, but in 98, by summer 98, I had reached the point where I could do everything that needed to be done on as high of a level of anybody else who was at the station. And we had some greats, okay? But it still took a while for me to actually get on in prime time. And I'll just throw this out there just so you all know. So like you mentioned in the intro me being a screenwriter. So I wrote a film script based on the early part of my career. and it's currently being shopped. I up with a company that pitches films to different production companies and distributors. So it's in the pitching phase. They're just waiting to get feedback from different folks.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
It popped back on. Okay, it's Marcus. You got a little delay, and now it's popped out. So log off, log back on. But we're talking today with MC Marcus Chapman. Got a
Talented.
lot of stuff
Extremely talented.
that has happened, and a lot of stuff that's going on. So we're gonna get to the stuff that's going on in a minute. He's coming back on here.
He's on twice.
You're gonna have to drop one of those.
He's on his phone and computer.
Okay, there.
There you go.
There you go.
But yeah, we're just saying we're talking with
All right,
MC
I'm back.
Marcus. Talking with MC Marcus Chapman.
Okay, it just
He's
went
here.
out and said I was gone.
Yeah, we had you twice, bro. We all good. Okay, it's a little delay, so we're trying to make that.
All right, so let me pick up from where I left off at.
Go ahead.
Okay. So 1998, this is what I was saying. So in 98, I got to the point where I was good, but it was still taking a while to get my own show, which was getting frustrating because I saw my coworkers being stars. I mean, people was making money hosting parties. I mean, they was just living it up, you know, and it was a live time in Chicago. The Bulls had just won that last championship with Michael Jordan, hit the shot with the arm up and all that. So it was a live place to be, man. But I felt like I was kind of on the outside because I wasn't getting the opportunity to be heard when most people would hear me, you know. So when I finally saw a possibility to move up, so June 20th, 1998, I ended up guest starring for my man Sam Silk. Sam Silk and Dr. Love hosted the Saturday night show on GCI at that time. Sam had to take off. I guest starred, filled in for him. It went great. Okay. Went to a picnic earlier that day, you know, and at 63rd and Hayes in Chicago, which is a famous spot here. Did the show, went to the Click nightclub that night, pulled a bad chick that night. You know, everything's great. But the next week I had to go back to just doing overnight. All right. So then a lot of times in radio, changes only get made. Devontae Stone, he got hired to do afternoon in Detroit. Okay. So it's like a domino effect. He was doing Saturday, Sunday afternoon. He left. Sam Silk was doing Saturday night 6 to 10. They moved him into the spots Devontae had, Saturday and Sunday afternoon 2 to 6. So that left the Saturday night 6 to 10 show open. Okay. Sam Silk and Dr. Love. So now they need somebody to work with Dr. Love. I had already done the show, like I said, June 20th. It went great. So I just know I'm finally going to get my chance to be on in prime time. My favorite show on the station, I'm going to be the host. I get down to the station to just talk to them about me hosting it. They tell me they had already gave the spot to Ramonski Love. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, Ramonski was my boy, but he was doing Old School Sunday.
Right.
I had worked with him on Old School Sunday for a while in 97. Okay. And so the thing about it, every show has a different flavor to it. A Saturday night 6 to 10 show is totally different from an Old School Sunday show. Saturday night 6 to 10 was more of a hip hop flavor. It was younger, faster. Old School Sunday was a little more laid back, even though it was, you know, it was up tempo music, but it was a different pace. And having been on that show, I'm like, that ain't gonna work. That's what Ramon used to do. He used to be the rap down host and all that. He had progressed and graduated from that to now he was old school and he was doing real well with it. Him and Tornado. Big Daddy Woo, RP to him. Okay, so to try to take him back and have him be young again and be old at the same time on Sunday, that made no sense whatsoever, especially since they had somebody younger who could do the Saturday night show,
right? Which
was me. But they and I remember the music director told me, I was like, what happened? He's like, out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, what? I'm like, dog, I had gotten another job at Dr. Wax Records. I was working at Monday through Thursday. I'm like, I can't just be hanging around a radio station all day. Like I ain't got nothing else to do, man. I got another job, you know. But they had made the decision. That was it. So 3 weeks went past, and next thing I know, I'm at the record store. I get a call, October 20th, 1998. It's a Tuesday. Okay. The manager at the store
You
has me on the
remember?
He
phone.
remember everything.
It's the music director. He's like, "You ready?" I'm like, "Ready for what?" He said, "Your new show." He said, "You're doing Saturday night 6 to 10 now. You got a partner, Dr. Love. Y'all start this Saturday." I was like, "Okay, bet." And I was like, "So am I still doing the after set?" He said, "No, yeah." He said, "Yeah, you gonna keep the after set, so you still have a show by yourself, but now you got 2 shows. We'll hear you on Saturday." Changed everything. Okay. So
Wow.
That's
now
amazing.
with that show, I go from feeling like I'm on the outside to, for the last few months of 1998, November, December, I'm the hottest dude on the radio. I'm able to host parties now because they had a system where, let's say one of you all was a party promoter or a club owner, and you were throwing events. You could hire somebody from the radio station to host your event, and they could mention it once an hour on their show, the day of the event or whatever the last time they was on the air. So if you had a Saturday night party, you could hire the Saturday night 6 to 10 show host to be at your party. We could mention it on the air every hour while people getting ready to, they're gonna do. They hear us telling people that your event is the hot one to go to. So now, not only am I on the air, but I'm getting paid to be at a party. And Dr. Love and I ended up hosting the biggest party in the city for young black people at that time. It was at the River West Brewery. And they eventually started calling it Club Sugar Hill. And the money that I made from that, along with everything else, I had enough money to move out my mom's crib, got my first apartment. Okay. So now I'm on there in prime time. I'm hosting the hottest party, and I got my own apartment just outside of downtown with a view of the Sears Tower. All right. I moved into it January 17th, 1999. And remember, I was saying I had started listening to the classic rock stations? January 17th was the 30th anniversary of the first Led Zeppelin. How did I know that? Because the classic rock stations was playing 3 songs at the top of every hour by Led Zeppelin, along with pieces of interviews that the band had did over the years to celebrate that feat. Okay. And I have been reading about a lot of those rock stars too. That's one thing. Like black artists, it's not a lot of information out there. They'll write their own autobiographies. Maybe somebody will write a biography about them. It's not a whole lot of books about a lot of black artists, aside from the heavyweights. You know, James Brown, Marvin Gaye. I probably read about 6, 7 books about Marvin Gaye. You know, but the average black artist is not a lot of info out there. But there was a lot of info about them rock artists. They used to have, y'all remember the Virgin Mega stores?
Right.
They had those downtown. They had one downtown in Chicago. I would go down there and get books, and I'm reading about Led Zeppelin and Kiss and The Doors and Steely Dan, and not just about the music. I was reading about the lifestyles too. You know, the stuff they was doing on tour. You know, the fun they was having. The wild times. And that was also around the time when VH1 had Behind the Music. They had Behind the Music, and they had another series called Legends. So I was able to see, about the lifestyle of the rock artists. And one thing that I noticed, rock and roll artists, particularly from the 70s and particularly the lead singers, they had a different attitude about life. Most black artists tend to sing about hope, love, relationships, things they hope the world would be. Rock artists was like, this our world, we taking over, whether you like it or not. Damn it, this how it's going down. We having parties, we getting the chicks. Yeah. So what I did at that time, I had already been heavy in the funk. That's going to always be my base, 70s funk. I had the R&B. I had gotten in the 70s jazz in college. I had the house music stuff from Chicago in the 80s. I had the disco, all that stuff. But now I had the rock vibe, not just the music, but the attitude. And what I learned is a lot of those rock artists got they swagger from black artists in the first place, from blues
True
singers.
that.
They remade a lot of stuff that black artists had done, and it worked the other way around too. Like the Isley Brothers, "Hello It's Me," that's a remake. Todd Rundgren, Al Green for the Good Times, Chris Christopherson. So a lot of that music played off each other. So the way I looked at it, I just took the whole energy that they had and I brought it back to its original source, which was the confident black man. And that gave me like a certain edge that nobody else, no other young black man around me had that, not even the other personalities. So I kind of took on this persona, sort of like a radio rock star. That was the vibe I had. And some of the stuff that I was reading about in them books started happening in my real life. Which is why it's gonna be a movie one of these days, because it just had that energy and there's so many stories from that. So when you ask, was there a point when I felt like I made it? Yeah. By February of '99, I mean,
Okay.
let's be honest. This and any guy who's been in this situation will attest to this. If you can walk into a party and pull the baddest chick in there, okay, and you end up getting with her, you ain't gonna be the same after that. You gonna have a different attitude, okay. And if you do it on a consistent basis, you really gonna have a different attitude.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I know.
1999 for me was like, if I was a football franchise, that was the year I won the Super Bowl. It's like the '85 Bears. That was my 1985. What 1985 was for the Bears, 1999 was for me. It was fun. Felt like I was on top of the world. And learning from them rock stars, I learned how to enjoy it even more than I would have before. So yeah, '99, and then that led into 2000. I became even more successful in 2000. I didn't have as much fun. I wasn't in Chicago no more. But just having that energy and having an outlet every Saturday night, I'm at the hottest party with the baddest chicks. And, right after getting off the air hosting a great show. So
Man.
yeah, it'll never get as fun as that. Being 25, 26 years old, in that situation. And I wasn't even on the radio every day. And I eventually got Friday night. It was a mix show, 10 to 2. They ended up changing it. That summer I started hosting that. I mean, yeah, those were good times, my friend. Very good times.
I already know, man. I was back there. I don't know if I had as good a time as you. I had my time as well. But as we're looking at these pictures, we got you've been around a lot of celebrities. Salt and Pepper. I mean, that wasn't Salt and Pepper. That's SWV. There's Deborah Cox. Even Donnie Simpson. There's Janet Jackson right there.
Little Janet.
Right.
Yeah.
We got Salt and Pepper. We got Beyonce. That's when Jay-Z went to the bathroom. That's
Philip Bailey.
Philip
Phil
Bailey.
Bailey. Sigma.
You got my man from that's good.
Ice Cube.
Paid in full. I forgot. You got
Eric
James
B. and
Brown
Rakim.
right there. Eric B. There you go.
Rakim.
Mhm.
Rakim.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I said Eric B.
No, that's Rakim.
It's Rakim.
Yeah, that was Rakim.
And it leads you all to this. Now I want to know, how did Unsung get you? How did you get to Unsung?
Okay, so the Unsung thing happened, and this was funny because sometimes in life you can do things just because you want to do them, and they may not have nothing to do with nothing else, and they can lead you to bigger things you didn't expect. Okay, so I was born in '73, and in the late '90s, early 2000s, VH1 used to have a lot of shows where they had the 100 greatest artists of rock and roll, the 100 greatest songs of this, and 100 this, and the top 50 of that. So when I was going to turn 40 in 2013, I came up with the idea. I've always been a full album person. I'm more likely to play somebody's whole album, whole CD than just be playing individual songs. So, but there were certain songs, maybe I wasn't into the whole album, but maybe the song really connected with me. So I was like, what if I figured out my 100 greatest or my 100 favorite songs, just my personal stuff? Well, when I started going through my collection, I noticed 100 songs weren't going to be enough. So I came up with the idea of 500 because of an article I read years earlier in Sports Illustrated about Reggie Jackson, the baseball player, hitting his 500th home run. And he was saying how that guaranteed he was going to be in the Hall of Fame, because 500 home runs back then was a milestone. So I came up with the MC 500. The idea, instead of it just being my favorite songs, it was like, if I had to tell the story of my life of the first 40 years, but I was telling it through using songs, what songs would really tell my story? Which songs meant the most or had the most impact? I just played them all the time, or which ones really typify who I am as a person in these first 40 years? So I came up with the MC 500. I started doing it as a countdown on Facebook. What I would do is I would do little short write-ups about the songs, and I would take the link from YouTube, post it on Facebook so people could hear the song. All right. And I did it in a countdown form, just like the TV shows did. So when I got about halfway through, I decided I wanted to preserve. I didn't want to just do it and then it disappeared. I wanted to preserve it in book form. So eventually I got a book deal. They ended up giving me the rights back to it, and I did it through Amazon, and it became 2 books. The picture you just saw with me holding the 2 books. So when the first one was coming out, the white one, volume 1, that came out on June 2nd of 2015. All right. Before it came out, I was talking to a friend of mine in LA named Sherry Pettiford. And she asked me, well, what's one of your goals for these books? And I said to become a go-to person for music documentaries. Because I had seen all the behind the musics. I had seen all the unsungs, and I always felt like I could do that. I just didn't know anybody who was connected with that stuff. She said, I'm friends with one of the producers from Unsung. It was a lady named Classietta Davis. She connected with her. Okay. Sent some messages back and forth. Eventually we talked. So when the book was coming out, my birthday was coming up as well. And so when because my birthday is June 5th. So I got a call through Facebook Messenger from Fred Alexander, the drummer from Lakeside. Because when the book came out, I did a post and I tagged a lot of the musicians who I mentioned in the book because I was friends with them on Facebook. And so Fred called me and we talked, and he mentioned they had an Unsung episode that they was doing. I was like, I gotta be in that. Okay. Like, this is my chance. It's a funk band who I grew up listening to. I got to connect with the lady from Unsung. So I let Classy know, and I sent her the link to the book on Amazon. She sent that to the executive producer, her boss, Mark Rowland, and the digital version of the book, because the book was digital and paperback. So he was able to go through it. He saw that I wasn't just some dude trying to get on TV, that I might actually be able to contribute. So it just so happened that Unsung I was in Dallas at the time. So I was down there doing radio. It just so happened that they were coming to Dallas to film for Lakeside and Johnny Taylor. Most of the band Lakeside is from Dayton, Ohio, but Fred Alexander was from Dallas. So they was coming down to Dallas to film. And Johnny Taylor was living down there for many years before he passed in 2000. So like his widow was there. Most of his family was there. So the producer from those 2 episodes ended up calling me, and we talked on the phone a little bit, and he invited me to the shoot. I went down to the shoot. It went well. And then after that, they started flying me out to other places to do the episodes because they did so well. But here's the thing about Unsung, though. So like I said, I had seen all of them. There were times when I would see an episode, somebody would come on the screen and say something, and I never saw them no more. But it was other people who I would continue to see. Okay. So when they told me they invited me to the shoot, they let me know what they was going to talk about. They let me know, they sent me the list of the songs. They sent me the questions. Some of them didn't end up getting used, but everybody who gets interviewed gets the same information, but everybody's not going to be on the screen for the same amount of time. So what is that? It's competition. When you say the word competition in the world these days, that's a bad word.
Right.
Oh no, I don't want to compete. I don't want no competition. I don't want my kids to have to compete. Man, please, I love competition because when I was growing up, when we were
That's the
growing
only way
up,
to get it.
competition was a way of life. Okay. In my neighborhood, we had a little league baseball organization, Southeast Little League, southeast side of Chicago. Okay. Everybody in my neighborhood played in the league. Okay. And when I first started playing, I wasn't that good, but my team was pretty good. And I never forget this, 1981. Okay. Everybody played 20 games. My team won 12. We were a good team. They had an awards banquet. And what it was, every division had 4 teams. And at the awards banquet, the first place team and the second place team would get trophies. So me and some of my teammates, we was at the awards banquet, and we didn't get no trophy because we won 12 games, but it was another team that won 13. They didn't get none either because there was another team that won 14 and one that won 15. So the first and second place teams got them trophies, and we had to sit there and watch them other kids get them trophies. They didn't give us one just because we played. We didn't win.
Like
we didn't win enough. Right. So, yeah, I know we'll give them all. So no, you got to earn this. Okay. Right. So I knew what it was like to watch other people do that. And then a few years later, my team was in first place, got the first place trophy. The next year, I made the all-star team. And out of everything I accomplished in life, I'm the most proud of making the 1985 Little League All-Star team at second base because I knew I was terrible in 1981. Wasn't really that good in 84 when we was in first place. But 85, I was an all-star. Okay, so it makes champions. Motown Records became what it became because Berry Gordy had the producers and writers.
Ooh, all right.
But Ashford and Simpson got one that's better, so we're gonna go with theirs. Or we gonna give it to Norman Whitfield. His song gonna come out. Competition makes people better, and a lot of people don't understand that. So I don't have a lot of opportunities to compete. So when I saw there was competition, I'm like, oh, I'm about to kill these folks. So I made it a point, and with the radio experience, it was always about preparing for your shows. So I prepared for the episode, knowing that if I give the best answer, I have the best chance of being seen on the screen better than somebody else who's just going in there winging it. Okay. Right. So I knew that going in. So I made it a point. I'm doing my research because every episode I would pull out everything I have on that artist to refresh my memory. I listen to the records, watch concert footage, Soul Train appearances, read stuff about them in books, go back, whatever. Anything that can give me an edge where I'm totally focusing on, okay, this is what this person accomplished. This is what they did. And like I said, they give you the questions so I could prepare for the exact question. What am I going to say when they ask me this? Mm-hmm. What can I give to this? And then the other thing too, and this was really important for me, I've seen a lot of documentaries over the years where, Black folks unfortunately have a tendency to think everything got to be funny. Okay. Now we have fun. I'm a fun guy, Richard Pryor, all that stuff. But sometimes you got to take things a little more seriously. And for me, to go on TV or be in a documentary talking about somebody who, especially if it's somebody who's not here to tell their story. What I look like going on Johnny Taylor's episode joking about him, or
Right.
Billy Paul, or Rudy Ray Moore. These are people, they not here to tell their stories no more. And I've seen situations where I give you the perfect example I always think of. It was a documentary, came on in the early 2000s, and they were just talking about black artists in the 80s. And one pseudo celebrity made a comment about Rick James. And he said, Rick James' Jerry curl was so drippy and juicy. Now, in the 80s, people had Jerry curls, right?
And it was juicy.
Okay. It's a documentary about the 80s. Sounds good is the problem. Rick James didn't have no damn Jerry curl. Rick James had braids.
Right.
What the hell are you talking about? You talking about somebody who ain't here to tell their story, and you making a joke out of them because it's a good punchline, and the people putting the episode together, they gonna use it because it seemed like it makes sense, but it doesn't. Right. It's disrespectful, and I wanted to bring a certain level of dignity to it. Like, I'm not about to be on here disrespecting folks, trying to make myself look good. Like, it ain't about me. Being a radio personality is about promotion. You promote the station, promote whatever event, you promote the song, you promote yourself. It's promotion, promotion, promotion. Being in a documentary is not about promotion. It's about, can you give some insight to the subject that's being discussed?
It's about telling the story.
A lot of times, that's why most radio personalities ain't really good at that. If you notice, if you watch Unsung, you'll see radio personalities, but you don't see them on there that much. Right. 1 appearance, 2 appearances, that's it. Why? Because it's a different mentality from being on the radio.
I have a question.
And here's the other thing too. So real quick, along with, I'm a music historian, but to a much lesser degree, I'm a sports historian, particularly baseball and football. Like I said, I played baseball. We played football around the crib. So every year, the NFL films used to make a video or a documentary about the Super Bowl from the previous year. It'd be like a 30-minute documentary. Okay. In 1977, the 77 season, the Super Bowl was played in early. Broncos were the Cinderella team that year, 77. Made it to the Super Bowl. Dallas had been there before, okay? Dallas ends up winning the game 27-10. But at the end of the documentary, one of the guys from Denver was quoted as saying, "We were out there thinking about winning. The Cowboys were out there thinking about football." Okay? Denver was thinking about winning. They thinking about the after party, the parade, the trophy. Dallas was out there thinking about the game, and they ended up winning because they didn't go in there thinking about what's going to happen later. This is what we got to do. If we don't do this right, we ain't getting none of that. So we're not focusing on that. That happens a lot with Unsung. People go in there thinking about being on TV. Because they've told me, they've had people be like, can you promise me? I told all my friends I'm going to be on Unsung. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, bruh. This is a competition. For you to get on TV, you got to give a better answer than me. You got to give a better answer than Nelson George, Steve Ivory, Ricky Vincent, Tyrone Du Bois. You got to do something and say stuff that can be on the level with us. Okay? And if you can't do that, you're going to end up on the cutting room floor. So in most cases, I don't end up on the cutting room floor. Because I don't go in there thinking about being on TV. I go in there thinking about answering the question and giving people some insight that's going to work and help the episode do what it's supposed to do for that artist. Or in the case of the last one that I was just saying, the decades, and there's 2 more of those coming. That's my mentality when I go in there. It's competition, and I'm going in there to kick everybody's ass. Who's going to get the best answer? All right. You got to beat me. I ain't got to beat you. You got to beat me. Can you do it? Like Ray Charles said, can you match it?
I'm gonna make you do what you do. Kevin, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask him. I appreciate you shouting out Ohio, the original place of the funk. I grew up with the Shelby brothers from Lakeside down the street from them, and the Ohio players or whatever. But I just got finished reading Will Smith's book, Will, and I wanted to know that in your position throughout your history, how much influence did the artists, individual artists, have with the music that you played, or did you just follow the script? Or could an artist influence you to play their music?
For the music that I just played around the house, or what?
No, talk
Or
about
from,
on
my
radio.
college
Could an
radio
artist,
shows.
and because I see it all the time. People handing DJs their tape. I remember WDAO in Dayton, Ohio. People would say, Kirk Logan that used to do it. He was a neighbor of mine. Give him a tape. Can you play my song on the radio or whatever? Did you get hit up like that? And did you play anyone, or did you discover anyone that wasn't already famous, and you said, I got to just play this young person's music and give them a break?
No, because keep in mind, when I was choosing
Program
music in
director.
college, I was playing music from the 70s.
Right.
Yeah, I was playing older music. When I got into professional radio, I wasn't choosing music. So no. Matter of fact, I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, is they would get too into the artist. Like, I never, whether radio or unsung, I never made it a point to be too closely associated with any particular artist or even a particular genre or whatever. My goal was to carve my own identity within all of that. The artist, desire to choose the music anyway, but the music is going to be played based on the public reaction. I went to, they would have these music meetings every week to figure out what they was going to play more of, less of, start playing, stop playing. I went to one in 1997. It was very eye-opening. The bottom line is this, especially back then, the radio stations, people act like the radio station doesn't want to play the songs. The radio station want to get the hot songs to play, because if one station is playing the hottest record and their competition isn't,
What are you listening to?
if somebody turn on the competition and the song they playing just all right, they gonna turn, and if they hit a hot song on the other station, guess what? They gonna keep it there. It's not really about the artist record a hit. And the more hits an artist has, the more leeway they'll get, or in terms of like the radio station may say, well, they on a hot streak, this might be a hit. We gonna give it a chance at least because it's the new Mary J. Blige, or it's the new Destiny's Child, or whatever. But that don't mean it's gonna stay on there. If the public isn't a song, then it wasn't gonna get played. So it wasn't like they didn't, people think they showed favoritism, but they really didn't. It's just a matter of, is the song good enough? Again, it's competition. Is this song good enough to compete against these other songs? Because whatever they put on there, it's only so much they're gonna be able to play. If they playing a song that ain't really hot, that's another song that they could be playing that they're missing out on. So no, I never made it a point to try to be too closely associated with any artist. And I'm just not that kind of guy. I hate to use the term alpha male because people overuse that, but I'm an alpha male to the highest degree. Okay. And but I'm realistic. I'm what you would call realistically confident. Okay. I know I can walk into a room and be the baddest cat in there.
Exactly.
But I also know if it's an artist with a hot song out and they in the room, ain't nobody paying no attention to me. They gonna be the star, and that's fine. Or if it's the top athlete or whatever, they're gonna get that. Singers, rappers, actors, some athletes, that's like the highest order, the highest level of entertainment that's going to attract attention. Okay. Radio is not on that level, but it's in the neighborhood. And the thing is, those guys only come around every now and then. If you're not in New York, LA, or Atlanta, you're not really seeing celebrities that much. They're gonna come to town when they doing their concert. They're gonna come and promote that. They're gonna promote they show or their album, whatever. And when they have events where they are the focus and they are the star, I don't normally even go to them events. I let those cats have a space, let them enjoy whatever they gonna enjoy,
Right.
and I keep it moving. I come back when they not there, when I can be the star. You know what I'm saying? Because my goal, especially back then, like I was talking about leaving with the hottest chick, I'm trying to be the dude who get the hottest chick's phone number. I ain't trying to watch some other dude get in and him walk out with her. You know what I'm saying? That ain't, so I never really tried to get too close to artists like that.
That's
Wait, what'd you say?
So,
I said you basically carving your niche for what you were doing in your career, and I can understand that because you had to have some type of show. You had to have something, so you stood out or were on top of everything else that was there.
Yeah, I mean you can, and the public would let you know if you was hot or not. You know, that's one thing I always respected is that, you know, yeah, I knew that some people would just have an attitude. Some people, what I call top jockers, you know, they gonna jock you if you're on top, but if you're not, they ain't gonna mess with you. But most people are not like that, you know.
Right.
So if I know what I'm doing is great, but I'm not being heard, then it's just because I'm not being heard. But if I go on the radio and mess up, you know, I can't expect for people to be like, "Oh yeah, you so great, yeah, you did good," and I messed up. You know, no, it don't work like that.
So did you do all the voiceovers for the Unsung episodes?
No, I don't do voiceovers. That's a guy named Gary Anthony Towns. I think that's his name.
Okay.
No, I don't do any voiceovers. I'm one of the people that actually come on there and talk. Like you can see me.
What'd you say?
Yeah.
Oh, on there. Okay.
Yeah, he's actually one of the guys that, like you said,
Yeah.
he'll
That's
come
why
on. You know,
I try to put.
They transition.
Yeah, that's why I try to put on screen contributor.
Yeah. Okay. We working it out. We making it work. All right. Don't worry about that. Hey, everybody, say what's up to Marcus.
Okay.
Hey, Marcus.
We working it out. We making it work. All right. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, Marcella Yours is actually giving us that feedback. But Mark, we're talking with MC Marcus Chapman. We got 15 minutes left, man. Hey, so now, can you tell us a little bit more about your
left, man. Hey, so now,
best of the 90s show?
Wait, I didn't hear you. Can I tell you more about what?
Can you tell us more about the best of the 90s show?
Oh, yeah. So it's a 2-hour show, comes on every weekend. Like I said, we just made a deal with a syndication company, so we're on several different stations. So depending on what station, they have the option to put it on whenever it works for them. You know, some stations may run it Saturday morning, Canada they running it Friday night. You know, it could be Saturday afternoon, something, whatever they choose to do. But after the shows air, I post them up on Mixcloud so people can hear them. And basically, it's just a chance to have a good time, man. You know, play the hits from the 90s. Like I said, every week we have a remix of the week, collab of the week, back-to-back artists. What's the other one? When we do the soundtrack jam. Because there was so many hot soundtracks, and you know, some soundtracks were good all the way through. Some were mostly good, some was absolute trash, but they might have had one or two hot records on them. So I pick out a jam from a soundtrack every week. A lot of times I'll get audio of the artist talking about the song or talking about the collab or what have you, just for a few minutes. 30 seconds, a minute and a half. It depends on what they saying. And it's always cool to get some behind the scenes info directly from the artist. And even though I may not be the one directly interviewing them, I know how to find the info that works for the audience from somebody else's interview, and yeah, it's just it's a real cool show. I really enjoy it. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. It takes, even though it's only 2 hours a week, it takes me like 4 days at least to put that together.
Wow, yeah.
3 minimum, because I got to figure out what I might play. Then I got to figure out what I'm definitely going to play and when. I got to figure, it got to take time into account because it's recorded in segments. You got to leave room for the stations to play their commercials. I try not to play too much of the same type of stuff in a row, kind of balance it out. And then once I figure out what's going to play, I have to actually physically take the MP3 files for every element in the show and put them together. So like the first segment is usually my intro and 3 songs. Well, I got to piece all that together, edit everything so it flow right, add the little drops in between if I'm using them, and put all that together. I do all that. It takes me a whole day to do that. The next day, I'll add my voice. I'll do the talking parts and I'll add the little interview clips. And then piece all that together, send it to the syndication company, and then the stations can, download it and play it. And then after that, I got to piece those segments together and put them up on Mixcloud as a whole show for people to hear if they didn't catch it on one of the stations.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it's a cool show. I like I said, I enjoy it.
That's real cool.
A lot of work. Jeannie, do you have a question?
No, I just want to compliment him and give him his accolades on so much you've done, and you never gave up. Even when they were trying to shut the door on you, you were beating down the door. I commend you for that.
Well, thanks. It's funny though. Remember earlier this year online, people were doing the 10-year challenge?
Yeah.
With the pictures?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my 10-year challenge. I didn't do it with pictures, but here's my 10-year challenge. We're in 2022. At this time, 2012, I'm going to tell you what I was doing. I was working from 7 in the morning to 12 noon or 12:30 at an Office Depot in Atlanta, making a dime over minimum wage.
Wow.
I was working at a hotel, driving a hotel shuttle, making, I think maybe $10 an hour, few tips every now and then. It was a struggle because, I worked in Dallas. I came back to Chicago. In 2008, I moved to Atlanta, and I was going to do radio in Atlanta. And I was on the radio a few times, but the company that was
like I said,
we lost him.
You there, Marcus?
Yeah, I'm here. You got me?
Okay, go ahead. We got you now.
Yeah, so if you remember in 2008, remember the whole housing crash, the economy crash and everything?
Yeah.
And everybody most of us were struggling to some degree, okay? So when that happened, it hit radio real hard because radio stations make their money from advertising dollars. You can't make money or advertise if your company is getting their ad budget cut. So the stations wasn't making the money, so they start laying folks off and cutting back and hiring freezes and all this stuff. And so I never actually got hired on the air in Atlanta at the station I was going to work for. Then I was going to work for another station. They ended up laying off a third of their air staff.
Wow.
That was in 2008. 2011, I was going to get hired at another station down there. The program director, I met him in person, and he was going to bring me in to do an audition, but he was like, I'm going on vacation for a week. When I come back, We're going to get you in there to audition. Week passes. He's like, give me a few more days. Got to talk about. He ended up getting fired. Okay. The general manager, who was his boss, took over the position. He said, yeah, you talented. We're going to bring you in. He ended up getting a promotion. So they put somebody else in charge. That cat didn't like me. I didn't get to audition. You know? So, and then I ended up being up for a job in New York. Okay. For a midday job. And what ended up happening is the station was, looking at me as a possible person to hire. Their competition got bought out by ESPN. They ended up kind of merging the stations. So the person who was on in the time slot that I would have possibly been on the other station, they ended up taking that job over. And so that was the end of the New York thing. Okay. I was up for a job in Dallas where I had worked down there before. They ended up hiring somebody else. I later found out it was the program director's boy. But that was the end of that. But they had a part-time open. It's a big difference between the radio every day and doing weekends, filling in. Ain't no real money doing weekend radio. Okay. When I was doing it in the 90s, like I said, you could host parties and all that. By 2011, 2012, that wasn't really happening. There ain't too many people in radio hosting events except people in Atlanta. And I ended up moving to Dallas just on the possibility of getting on the radio part-time because, like I said, I was working at a hotel and I was able to transfer from the hotel in Atlanta to the hotel in Dallas, which ended up being better. And eventually I got back on the air and been able to build everything up that we talked about since then. The unsung stuff, the books, all of that. And then here's the funny thing, though. So 2017 in Dallas, I was up for a job. I was working part-time on the hip-hop station. And they started another station, the same company. They started this, what they call a classic hip-hop. So they was playing stuff from the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Okay. So I was up they were making some changes. They had an opening to do afternoons. Okay. When most people think of radio, they think of morning shows. I personally have never wanted to host a show. I just don't. And morning shows are typically teams anyway. Everybody else normally works alone. Okay. So afternoon, you get the same audience and you get to, all right. So they ended up giving the job to somebody else, but he ended up having a heart attack and had some health issues. So I had to fill in for a job that I got passed up for like 3 months. But the way things work out, because I was in there doing afternoon, I ended up hosting the club every Friday night. I made money off of that. I had a couple of sponsorship deals, endorsement deals with like a cable company and some insurance company that were just part of the show. Okay. So I was able to save up a lot of money. And this is while all these unsung things are going on as well. I was told by the program director that being a host on that station wasn't my lane. I'm like, so let me get this straight. You playing music from the 90s that I played when it was new, and I worked in this market in 2001, when some of these songs were out, but it's not my lane. And I'm on a TV show on your company that's featuring these same artists, but it ain't my lane. I'm like, dude, you got to be high or something. Okay. But wasn't nothing I could do about it. So I had a conversation with somebody high up in the company. And I'm like, look, the only person they had on their radio stations who was also on TV was Ricky Smiley. Okay. So I'm like, me being part-time on the radio don't make no sense. And he told me, I will never forget this. He told me, you being on Unsung don't mean nothing to us. I'm like,
What are you
Okay,
talking about it if it don't mean
well,
nothing?
what am I working for y'all for then?
All right.
Right. Everybody I talked to, whether they was in radio or not, the first thing they would say to me was, I seen you on Unsung. And this was in 2017. There were 10 episodes that I filmed that came on that year. I was in 5 of the first 8 for the beginning of that year, including the very first person to talk in the very first episode they aired that year, which was
Wow.
SWV. Okay. So I'm all over the TV with this company, and I'm
It don't
working
mean
for the
nothing.
radio station, same company, and they tell me being on TV don't mean nothing. So I'm like, okay. When the person I was filling in for got healthy enough to come back, I was back to just being on the radio on Sundays, 2 to 6. Now, one thing about me, I've always been ambitious. I'm like this. If you don't see me going to a higher level, you just get to stand on the side and watch. I'm not going to stay here and have you push me to the back knowing that I'm capable of doing more and you ain't trying to help me do more. What do I need to be here for? My lease was coming up. I had been gone from home for 9 years at that point. I was like, I'm out. I'm not about to stay here and be struggling, working once a week. Cause once you've been on the radio that much in a market, you can't really get no job doing nothing else. I tried it before, They look at your resume and be like, you supposed to be on the radio. What you want to work here for? If a job opening come up at the radio station, you gonna leave and go to them. Well, why would we hire you? It's hard to do that. So I ended up leaving. And I was out of radio for a few years until this past October,
Wow, you got a long history,
But
Marcus.
that goes back to what I said earlier.
We're definitely going to have to bring you back for a whole nother segment. I mean, you in this industry, like, you built it.
Well, like he was saying,
Nah, I ain't
the
gonna say
80s.
all that now. If I built it, it would be better.
What say, Maurice, real quick?
Like he said, the 80s music and the 90s music, that
you
seemed
know
like
what I
that's
built,
just a
though?
straight run.
Go ahead, Maurice. Finish it.
I'll tell you what I built, though. I built my own identity. That's the thing nobody can ever take away from me. I was never the product of, I've never allowed other people to determine who I can and can't be. It's going to be determined based on my ability and what I can do. And sometimes people are willing to help you get to a certain point, but then they'll and that's intimidating to people too. Be like, no, we can't bring him in, and he may take over. That's their mentality, even though I may not be thinking that way.
Right.
Absolutely.
But that's the most important thing, I think, to have in this business is your own identity.
Where can they see your show at or hear your show at?
The best of the 90s shit on one of the regular stations that it airs on. You can hear it on Mixcloud. The page is MC Best of the 90s. And all the shows that we've done so far, I'm saying we, like it's somebody else on there with me. All the shows I've done so far are posted on the Mixcloud page. And you can hear them on there. So, like I said, we did special years. So 93 is the last one on the page, and 94 is the one coming up this weekend. So that'll be on there by Saturday.
We are definitely going to promote it, man. Hey, man, like Gina said, man, an hour and a half ain't enough time. I mean, I got so many questions and so many memories that I want to come back on, man. But, definitely, man, whenever you need to come back on or want to come back on, our door is always open for you. We had a good time learning because, most times we asking a lot of questions, okay, but we have to sit back and listen today. We just have to sit back and take it in because music is one thing that it's if you don't know it, you can't talk about it. We have our own music historian here in Marcus Chapman, man. And, hey, bro, look, like I said, I've been knowing you for a long time. That picture says 1,000 words. But to see you now, it's amazing, bro. And we appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you having me. You know, there's a lot of stuff that can be talked about. So, you know, we touched on some things, some things we didn't even get into. But,
right.
Just try to keep it moving and have more stuff to talk about.
And that's why you got to come back, bro. You got to come back. So whenever you get some time, because I know you're real busy, come on back and hang out with us, all right?
Absolutely. Very interesting. Lots of good information.
I have two or three other questions.
You're going to have to wait till next round, Mo.
Well, hey, it's all y'all, you told me 2 hours, so, hey, I'm good. It's up to y'all.
I did tell him 2 hours, but, I wanted him to come on and just say everything. I didn't know an hour and a half didn't even touch on a quarter of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we do got to get out of here, man. And it's always a pleasure, man. And like I said, to see you, man. You don't age,
Right.
But it's good, man, to see you. This is Dope Living TV Live, y'all. We got to get up out of here. Marcus, do you want to say one more thing real quick?
Just thanks to all of you all for having me. Thanks for everybody for listening and watching, and everybody that's going to watch the rebroadcast. Thanks to everybody to checking out the shows, all the feedback I've gotten from, my contributions to the Unsung shows. There's 2 more that I'm in that'll be coming in April because they did the 70s and 80s. They also did the 90s and 2000s. Those are going to be at the end of this current season, like in mid to late April. And I'm in both of those. So yeah, and everybody that's part of the Best of the 90s Facebook group, we got a Facebook group. There's a page, but I noticed like when you post stuff on the page, it'll show how many people it reached. And for some reason, it's not that many. It'd be like 3 people. I'm like, what y'all got? I can get more people than that on the regular page. What I don't do that for? So I put a lot of stuff in the group. We do opinion polls and videos, and I share, different images, charts, and, pictures and all types of stuff. So if you're on Facebook, go to the Best of the 90s with MC Marcus Chapman. We got the group on there, and we have a little fun with it, So just check all that out.
Absolutely.
Hope you enjoy it.
We appreciate you once again, bro. This is Dope Living TV Live. We got to get up out of here. We will see you guys on Monday. Everybody check out, go to YouTube after this is over. Today, tomorrow, whenever. Check the interview out again. And that's all we got. It's Dope Living TV Live. We will see you guys on
Peace.
Monday.